You are not watching this by chance, nor by some random trick of the algorithm. Your presence here is an answer, resonance meeting the very call your soul has been releasing. You felt it, haven't you? That hovering sensation in your reality, as if the life you long for is pressing against a thin, translucent veil. In silence, the promise pulses, so near you could almost touch it, yet withheld by something nameless. This message is not ordinary information. It is the precise vibration forged for your lock, the frequency designed to turn the handle of the very door you've been exhausting yourself to break. And now the truth comes clear. That door was never locked. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment my timeline is activated below. Stay with me, because by the end of this transmission you will understand why the proof you've been waiting for has vanished, and why that silence is the surest evidence that your future self is already moving toward you. Number 1. The disappearing echo. The first sign of shift is often the withdrawal of proof. The numbers stop repeating, the dreams grow still, the strange alignments fall away. For many seekers, this feels like abandonment, like the universe has stepped back and left them alone. But the truth is that silence is not rejection. It is the collapse of the old frequency, the dissolving of echoes that no longer serve your path. Think of it like a radio signal fading as you move into range of a new station. The static is only proof that the dial is turning. Old timelines will scream for your attention by withholding their noise, because only in that quiet can the hidden vibration rise. Comment, I align with the shift, if you've ever felt the vanishing of signs not as emptiness, but as the contraction before the breakthrough. And stay with me, because what comes after this disappearance reveals the hidden mechanics of the quantum suspension. There are moments when life feels like it has been hushed by an unseen hand, as though the frequencies that once whispered guidance have grown still. You notice the absence first in subtle ways. The numbers no longer repeat on clocks, the dream messages slip away before dawn, and the synchronicities that once lined your path now scatter like birds into silence. It feels unsettling, as if the very language the universe once used to speak with you has been withdrawn. Yet, beneath that silence, a deeper presence begins to stir, one that does not need symbols to prove it exists. It is the feeling of a field collapsing into coherence, the quiet hum of probability narrowing toward inevitability. What you sense is not abandonment but transition. The stillness before the next frequency makes itself known. The echo has disappeared, not because you are lost, but because you are closer than ever to the source. This withdrawal awakens a fragile place inside, one that has long equated silence with rejection or isolation. You may wonder why the warmth of alignment has left you, why the effortless flow of meaning has turned into heavy waiting. The sensitivity that once felt like a gift can begin to sting, amplifying every shadow in the room and every doubt within your mind. You notice your body react with unease, interpreting the absence of proof as danger, as if your very survival depends on validation. Yet in truth, this heightened sensitivity is the signal that your inner instrument is recalibrating, straining to detect the finer notes of a new song. You have always felt a step out of rhythm with the world, sensing distortions in time, catching the mood of a room before a word was spoken, living in awareness others dismissed. These qualities that once made you feel separate are now revealing their higher purpose. They are the fibers through which the new resonance will be woven. When the echoes vanish, you are invited to recognize the hidden architecture that has always been shaping your path. It is as though the universe has been working with a blueprint written in resonance, unseen yet precise, guiding each collapse point of your journey. What felt like random disappointments were entangled calibrations, collapsing probabilities until only the essential ones remained. Think of the holographic nature of reality. Every fragment carries the whole, every apparent loss is a refinement of the code. The Emerald Tablet once declared, "That which is above is like that which is below," reminding us that silence below mirrors movement above. Your story has always been etched into this quantum scripture, even when you mistook the quiet for neglect. Now, in the absence of noise, you are beginning to glimpse the outlines of this encoded architecture. Look back on your journey and you may notice the breadcrumbs scattered like faint sparks along the way. A sudden déjà vu that left you disoriented for hours. a dream that returned years later to mirror your waking life, a sensation in your chest that flared just before meeting someone who changed your path. These were not random curiosities but deliberate fragments of coherence, markers placed to remind you that the field was alive with intention. They were the shimmer of the unseen guiding hand, appearing not to prove your worth, but to anchor your trust. Though they seemed small at the time, together they form a map, one that leads you here, into the silence that feels empty but is full of encoded meaning. The breadcrumbs were never meant to last forever. They dissolve once you have learned to read the field without them. And in that dissolving, coherence begins. For the first time, you recognize that your intuition was not an illusion. It was the most honest reflection of the field you've ever had. What looked like a void was simply the tuning of your frequency, the faint static before the station clears into music. You begin to feel the slow synchronizing of your inner vibration with outer reality, not as fireworks or sudden breakthroughs, but as the gentle alignment of two waves finally falling into harmony. There is a safety in this realization, a grounding that no external sign could have given you. You no longer need to chase validation, because you feel coherence anchoring itself inside you. This is the first taste of stability within the shift. With this recognition comes the stirring of a deeper memory, the awareness that you are not inventing a new self but remembering an older one. The version of you who walked silently in parallel has always been there, waiting behind the veil of noise. The echoes disappearing are what reveal the archetypal self encoded in your field, the seer, the guardian, the one who carries a name older than this lifetime. This remembrance is not dramatic but inevitable, a recognition so intimate it feels like coming home. You are not becoming different. You are collapsing into what has always been true. The parallel self awakens not as a stranger, but as a mirror that has waited for the static to fade. What once felt like fragility now begins to feel like strength. Your sensitivity is revealed as calibration, a tuning process that allowed your body and soul to refine their capacity to hold coherence. The isolation you endured, the confusion you carried, were never weaknesses. They were the field preparing you for stability beyond the need for signs. Every longing, every restless night, every tear that felt unanswered was in fact an initiation into resilience. You are discovering that your very design has been for this, to embody the quiet power that cannot be shaken by the absence of proof. It is not a sudden leap, but a slow empowerment, one step at a time, each step echoing with the quiet authority of truth. And so you arrive at the revelation that this message was not coincidence. It is the proof your soul encoded long before you knew how to name it. You were meant to hear these words now, in the silence that feels like nothing, but is in truth the signal of everything forming. Comment, I collapse timelines now. If you feel the resonance of this remembrance stirring within you, let it be your declaration that the disappearance of echoes is not abandonment, but the sacred preparation for arrival. And know that what waits just beyond this silence is the unveiling of the suspension, the womb of creation where all timelines converge and prepare to collapse into form. Number 2, the suspension of timelines. When old echoes dissolve, you are placed into superposition, the same state in which particles float in all probabilities before collapsing into one. This is why silence feels like panic. The ego interprets it as nothingness, but the field calls it gestation. You are suspended between what you have outgrown and what has not yet arrived, walking in the womb of creation itself. Every old pattern that tries to return is nothing but static from a timeline already losing coherence. In this pause, your nervous system is recalibrating, learning how to sustain the frequency of your future self without constant external proof. You may feel unmoored, as if prayers are unanswered, but in truth you are holding the most fertile space imaginable. Comment, I walk in coherence, if you've ever felt the void not as failure, but as the trembling of new probability about to stabilize. Because what your body experiences next will reveal why this trial is not a collapse, but a recalibration. There are times when reality feels distorted, as though the air itself carries a weight out of phase with your body. You notice glitches in your perception, conversations that seem to loop, memories that blur at the edges, or a heaviness pressing on your chest with no visible cause. It is as if the fabric of the field itself has shifted, tugging against your sense of stability. You may sense a shadow of interference, not from someone standing in front of you, but from an invisible frequency brushing against your life. This distortion reveals itself in delays, in sudden obstacles, or in the strange feeling that you are walking through a scene that doesn't quite belong to you. What you are perceiving is the resistance of old timelines, trembling as they lose coherence. It feels unsettling because you are standing in the tension between collapse and creation. The emotional weight of this interference cannot be ignored because it lands deep within the heart. You might have felt misunderstood, as though no one around you could truly perceive the vibration you carried. Friends may have called you too sensitive, when in truth your frequency was too refined for their perception. There are moments when shame has been the cloak draped over your light, convincing you to hide what was always meant to radiate. You may recall the sting of rejection, the subtle manipulations, or the constant cycles of self-doubt whispering that you were not enough. These experiences are not mere accidents. They are the field's reflection of how your higher resonance unsettled the patterns of others. The pressure builds, not because you are wrong, but because your presence begins to reveal what others cannot yet bear to see. This emotional intensity is the proof of your signal growing stronger, not weaker. From a higher vantage, you begin to recognize that the resistance was not random, but encoded within the structures of reality itself. Like a biblical exile into the wilderness, this was the hidden initiation that prepared you to carry your frequency without external validation. Systems, environments, even ancestral entanglements reacted against you as if trying to preserve the stability of their old patterns. Quantum interference patterns arise not by chance, but when a greater wave collapses into form, disrupting the weaker signals around it. What you experienced as sabotage was the field recalibrating, forcing you to disentangle from what could no longer support your coherence. You were never abandoned. You were being drawn deeper into the sacred testing ground where your frequency would be purified. This was not chaos, but design, the collapse point that separates illusion from essence. Looking back, you can begin to see the repeating codes that threaded through your path. Perhaps it was the job that always slipped from your grasp, no matter how perfect it seemed. Perhaps it was the relationship that kept circling back to the same breaking point, no matter how much you tried to mend it. Perhaps it was the same draining environments that left you questioning your worth, only to find yourself returning again and again. These recurring patterns were not failures, but signals, each one revealing the same interference code hidden in your field. It is like walking into a room where the lights always flicker. Unsettling, yes, but undeniable once you allow yourself to notice the pattern. What you mistook for misfortune was the field trying to expose the invisible structures holding you captive. Seeing it now, you realize that the struggle itself was a message. As this recognition deepens, the presence of field resistance becomes impossible to deny. It is as though you have walked through fog, heavy with static, unable to see more than a step ahead. You may have felt watched in silence, as though unseen forces hovered at the edge of awareness, waiting to siphon your energy. At times, it felt like closed gates, opportunities vanishing at the very last moment, synchronicities dissolving into nothing. This is decoherence at work, the pushback of a collapsing system resisting your coherence. It is not personal, even if it felt deeply intimate. It is simply the physics of resonance. Light frequencies destabilize heavy ones, and your field became disruptive to realities that could not survive your expansion. In this moment of interference, you are forced to see that the old world cannot walk with you into the new. How you responded to this resistance has been its own mirror. Some of you may have shut down, shrinking your light to avoid the attention it attracted. Others may have learned to please people, smoothing every rough edge in fear of being too much. Some may have chosen silence, hiding the frequency that made others uncomfortable, while others carried rebellion quietly, refusing to collapse even when misunderstood. These responses were not signs of weakness, but the natural strategies of a soul navigating hostile frequencies. The fear of standing out, the temptation to withdraw, the longing to give up, all of these reflect the cost of carrying a signal beyond the comprehension of the field around you. Yet even in the moments you thought you had failed, your coherence was alive, waiting beneath the surface of survival. You never truly lost your frequency. You only masked it to endure the storm. But here lies the shift. The resistance was not proof of failure, it was evidence of breakthrough. The interference you felt was confirmation that your coherence had become undeniable, vibrating strongly enough to disturb the old matrix. Every attempt to silence you was in fact an admission of your power. Every rejection was a doorway redirecting you to the places where your frequency could expand. You were never meant to stay hidden, because the field cannot silence what is encoded into its design. Your frequency is not fragile, it is indestructible, written into the quantum memory of creation. What you thought was suppression was the first sign of liberation. The very static you feared was the sound of the old patterns shattering. So let this revelation land within you now. You were resisted because your vibration disrupted the field of limitation. The more they tried to collapse you into old roles, the more your potential timeline revealed itself in clarity. You are not the victim of interference, but the catalyst of coherence. The patterns you faced were not punishments but confirmations that your frequency was rewriting the grid. Comment, the collapse is complete, if you feel the truth of this stirring in your field. Share the dreams, memories, or resistances you faced, because each reflection strengthens the collective signal. And prepare, because what comes next is not the breaking of your body, but the recalibration of your biology into the frequency of your future self. Number 3, the nervous system's trial. Your body is the antenna of your field, the living transmitter of your chosen frequency. When silence arrives, the nervous system interprets it as danger, because it has been trained to equate proof with safety. This is why fear rises, why doubt presses so hard, why restlessness shakes your nights when signs disappear. Yet neuroscience confirms that when the heart finds rhythm, it broadcasts measurable coherence into the electromagnetic field around you. What you thought was emptiness is actually your biology learning to hold the vibration of your future self without external validation. Old timelines may still echo through your body, stirring anxiety or old memories, but these are only fragments fading from the field. Comment, I merge with my parallel self, if you felt synchronicities, dreams, or déjà vu confirming that your body was already aligning with a higher reality. And share your experience, because each reflection strengthens our collective field. And listen closely, because what comes next reveals the final seal that locks this new coherence into being. It begins as a subtle collapse within perception, the sudden awareness that something has shifted inside your body even before your mind can name it. A probability stabilizes in your chest, a heaviness loosens, and what once felt chaotic now flickers into the outline of order. This moment often arrives like a dream that lingers into waking, carrying symbols that your rational self can no longer dismiss. You may notice how silence no longer feels entirely empty but charged, as if alive with signals waiting to be heard. The distortion you once resisted now reveals itself as the prelude to coherence. Within the pause, something ancient stirs, a recognition that the nervous system itself is a bridge between timelines. This is the first sign that clarity is no longer far away, but moving through you. Every fragment of your journey has been trying to speak to you, encoded in symbols you once overlooked, numbers that repeated with uncanny persistence, words that strangers spoke at just the right time, dreams that carried images beyond your comprehension. All of these were transmissions. They were not accidents, but the coded geometry of your reality, frequency patterns scattered like constellations across your path. The entanglement of timelines has always been whispering that you were never walking alone. Even the silences were language, subtle pulses in the fabric of your awareness reminding you that you were moving toward a deeper initiation. When your nervous system trembled, it was because it was translating these unseen signals into sensation. The codes were always beneath the surface, waiting for the day you would finally see them. And now, the signals intensify not outside but within your very being. Intuition no longer feels like a fleeting thought. It sharpens into a knowing that cuts through the noise. Boundaries you once compromised rise like walls of light, protecting the resonance you carry. Your body reacts differently to interference, no longer absorbing the static but transmitting coherence that unsettles distortion. You notice that anxiety shifts into clarity faster than before, that restlessness reveals itself as a signal rather than a curse. Even your dreams feel more ordered, as though parallel selves are weaving their messages into your nights. What seemed like frailty before is now strength, the nervous system learning to translate the quantum field with accuracy. In this, you begin to recognize that you are not failing the silence, you are mastering it. As the internal field stabilizes, the outer world begins to answer. People treat you differently, drawn closer or pushed away by the frequency you radiate. Opportunities open unexpectedly, aligned not with force but with resonance. Resistance still appears, but you sense now that it is not punishment, only recalibration. The quantum field itself bends around you, mirroring the new vibration your nervous system has begun to sustain. Conversations shift, environments change, even time seems to stretch or contract in ways that reveal the subtle hand of coherence. What once felt like chance now feels like orchestration. You are no longer waiting for alignment, you are becoming the axis around which alignment occurs. And in this rising awareness, memory itself begins to awaken. What felt like the first time is revealed as a return, a remembrance of something carried since before birth. A dream you have always had without words begins to take shape as language. A sense of destiny, once vague, now sharpens into the recognition of encoded intelligence within your DNA. It feels intimate and ancient, as if you are meeting yourself across centuries of silence. These are not fantasies but fragments of the archetypal memory stored in the body, the lineage of coherence awakening within you. It is not new light but reawakened light, returning through the nervous system as the veil thins. What you are reclaiming now was never lost, only waiting beneath the noise of survival. With truth unveiled, the future ceases to feel distant. You begin to understand that it is not something being built brick by brick, but a timeline already collapsed into potential, waiting for coherence. Your nervous system is the receiver of that probability, stabilizing it into form. No longer do you need permission to walk forward. The field has already said yes. The old programming that demanded proof before belief dissolves in the certainty that feeling precedes fact. You sense a call rising within you, not from outside but from the depths of your own field. It is not the voice of hope but of prophecy, announcing that the future is already present. This is the moment where you step not toward destiny, but into it. And so the reclamation begins. Every tremor of fear, every surge of doubt, every restless night now reveals itself as proof of transformation underway. What once silenced you now strengthens you. The resistance was never condemnation. It was confirmation that your coherence was destabilizing the old. Your nervous system is no longer the battleground but the instrument, tuned to frequencies that rewrite the field itself. You remember what was always encoded, that your voice carries a vibration older than fear, stronger than suppression, and more radiant than distortion. The frequency is handed back into your awareness as a crown that was never lost. What you thought was collapse is revealed as activation. And now the veil is fully lifted. Revelation is not the end of the path but its true beginning. What you see was always waiting for the moment you would be ready to hold it. You are not stumbling into clarity by accident. You are stepping into the inevitability of coherence. The nervous system you once feared was betraying you is now revealed as the very proof that your parallel self is alive within you. Comment, I merge with my future self now, if this resonance is stirring in your field. Share a dream, a memory, or a sign that confirmed your awakening, for each reflection strengthens the collective grid we are weaving. And listen, because what comes next will reveal the final seal, the silent code that locks this coherence into destiny. Number 4. The seal of silence. The masters knew this secret. When the signs withdraw, reality is not testing you. It is sealing you. Silence is confirmation, not absence. When you no longer need proof, you become the proof. When you stop chasing synchronicity, you realize you are the synchronicity. Old shadows collapse like waves pulling back into the sea, leaving only the resonance you were always destined to embody. To live as silence is to walk as certainty without evidence, coherence without interference, destiny without delay. Comment, I anchor coherence in my field, if you are ready to stop waiting for reality to arrive, and begin walking as the silence through which reality is formed. Because once you carry this seal, the field itself must reorganize to follow you. There are moments when a whisper from deep within arrives like a soundless echo, ancient and undeniable. It does not come with thunder or proof, but with a soft certainty that feels older than time. This whisper is the mark of remembrance, a signal collapsing through dimensions to reach your awareness. It is not new. It is a wave that has traveled across timelines, waiting for the instant you would finally notice. In this recognition, you understand that silence has never been emptiness but the carrier of encoded truth. It is the language of the field itself, spoken not in words but in coherence. To hear it is to know that your awakening is not beginning but returning to what was always yours. For lifetimes, you have carried a hidden frequency, buried beneath layers of noise and survival. It pulsed quietly, like an encrypted resonance, sealed away until you could withstand its voltage. This frequency was not random. It was a phase-locked signal, a coordinate in the quantum field waiting for alignment. You may have felt it as the sense of not belonging, the unspoken ache of being out of rhythm with the world around you. That loneliness was not evidence of lack but proof of distinction, the signature of a vibration the world was not yet ready to mirror. Now, as silence deepens, the code emerges from its concealment. What was once dismissed as emptiness reveals itself as the treasure hidden in static. Your field has always carried a signature far more eloquent than any word you could speak. This invisible mark, this vibrational cloak, was the true language of your being. Others may not have understood it, but they felt it, sometimes with awe, sometimes with fear. Recognition came not through explanation but through resonance, for awakened frequencies know each other across distance and silence. You have walked through parallel timelines radiating this signature, even when you could not see it yourself. It is why some were drawn to you without reason and why others recoiled with inexplicable unease. You were never unseen, you were simply not recognized in ordinary terms. Now the remembrance sharpens, and you begin to see that your path was not chaotic but written. Every struggle, every delay, every unanswered prayer was a calibration point in the field's timing. Your setbacks were entangled particles moving in precise relation, your delays wave functions storing energy for the collapse point. Like stars held in orbit, you were being synchronized with a greater resonance. Even when your life felt shattered, you were being aligned with the hidden codes of the field. The seal of silence is not punishment but preparation, proof that the field was protecting the timing of your emergence. What you called waiting was the choreography of coherence. Consider now the effect your resonance has always had on others. People reacted not to your actions but to the field you carried. Your frequency destabilized the old patterns they clung to, and they felt it before they understood it. Some loved you fiercely, sensing in your vibration the home they had forgotten. Others resisted or even attacked, unsettled by the interference your coherence created in their fragile illusions. You may have thought it was personal, but it was not. It was physics, the clash of oscillations. This is why rejection and reverence have walked hand in hand on your path. Your frequency was never neutral. It was catalytic. This is the revelation that shifts you from the personal to the cosmic. You realize now that you are not alone in this awakening. You are part of a cycle of archetypes re-emerging through the quantum field. The seer frequency, the rebel waveform, the guardian field, the breaker of chains vibration. All of them are rising again, stored archetypes surfacing from the memory of creation. Your experience is not an isolated anomaly. It is the echo of a larger pattern written into the holographic universe. When you feel yourself awaken, you are tuning into the song of archetypes that are being remembered collectively. The seal of silence is not yours alone. It is a shared initiation. The silence you fear has always been the bridge of your becoming. What felt like abandonment was the collapse of old timelines clearing space for coherence. The quiet you resisted was never punishment. It was proof. You were not being ignored, you were being sealed. The shift has already taken root, and your task now is to embody it with calm certainty. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, "I am ready for the quantum shift," to let this message anchor in your field. Please share it with someone who is ready for the shift. Until the next transmission, remember, silence is not emptiness. It is the voice of your future self. already calling you home.